Hello everyone, I'm Chris, and this is everything you need to know before watching Sonic the Hedgehog 3, releasing December 20th. If you end up enjoying this video and want to see more from us, then make sure to click that subscribe button and click the bell to know anytime we upload a new video. After two very successful theatrical releases, as well as a miniseries on Paramount+, the Sonic franchise will be releasing yet another installment this December, titled Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which will be introducing audiences for the first time in live action to one of the property's most beloved and popular characters, Shadow the Hedgehog, who it seems will prove to be quite the challenge for Team Sonic to overcome. But before we get to the new film, we first want to take a look back at everything Sonic and his friends have gone through so far, and remind you of everything you'll need to know before heading to theaters. To begin, we're taken all the way back to the childhood of Sonic the Hedgehog, living on a tropical island where he was taken care of by Longclaw the Owl, and was born with extraordinary powers of chaos energy, giving him supersonic speed, which Longclaw told him to keep a secret, worried that if someone knew of his power, it would put him in grave danger. But Sonic didn't listen, and it unfortunately cost him one day when, after returning home from a run, he and Longclaw were attacked by a tribe of Echidna warriors, forcing Longclaw to scoop Sonic up and attempt to fly away, but she soon sent crashing to the ground after being shot out of the air. So, severely wounded, she hands Sonic a bag of rings that it's revealed can be used to open portals to different spots in the universe, and one of which she tosses into the air to open a portal to Earth, explaining that it's on the far side of the universe and that he could be safe there as long as he never stops running and remains hidden. So, she sends him through the portal as the tribe approaches them, and presumably sacrifices herself to protect his future. We then jump forward 10 years to Green Hills, Montoya, where Sonic spent the last decade living in a cave underground. But despite spending the majority of his time all alone, he's still been able to find enjoyment in stuff like comic books and ping pong, and in people like Green Hills Sheriff Tom Wachowski, who he likes to call the Donut Lord because of how often Tom talks to donuts, and Tom's wife Maddie, a veterinarian who he calls Pretzel Lady after seeing how flexible she is when doing yoga. And although he's not able to interact with either of them, he does like to mess with them from time to time, doing things like zipping past Tom as he's sitting in an empty speed trap and reading 300 miles per hour on his radar gun, which prompts Tom to exit his vehicle to inspect the area, and he actually ends up finding one of Sonic's blue quills lying in the grass, which although he doesn't think much of it, he still decides to take home with him. Upon returning home, Tom's greeted by Maddie, who hands him a long-awaited letter from the San Francisco Police Department, as he'd recently applied for a job there, feeling there wasn't anyone in Green Hills in need of any real help. And fortunately, they accept his application. Shifting back to Sonic, who the following day comes across a Little League Baseball playoff game and is delighted by the joy and friendship shared between the players. So that night, he decides to head out onto the field and play by himself, using his powers to play the role of every position and make a perfect play. But this experience doesn't prove to be nearly as thrilling, and he's saddened to not have anyone to celebrate with. So, to let out his frustration, he runs around the field as fast as he can, but his anger ultimately becomes too strong, causing him to let out an electrical pulse from his body that explodes into the air and knocks out the power across the entire Pacific Northwest. The US government is completely taken aback by this sudden loss of power, and so, having no leads as to how this happened or who was behind it, they decide to bring in Dr. Ivo Robotnik, a brilliant man with revolutionary drone tech and a perfect operations record, but was also known to be a bit crazy. Despite that, Robotnik's still sent to find the source of the explosion, and after sending his drones to scan the area, he's able to determine the exact height, weight, spinal curvature, and footprint of the creature, which to his delight isn't of anything in Earth's animal kingdom, bringing him to conclude that it must be an alien of some sort. So he continues searching with his drones, which Sonic soon notices, prompting him to quickly gather his things and prepare to travel to a new safe planet, which appears to be filled with only mushrooms. Before he can come to terms with leaving Earth though, he hears troops in the drones approaching his cave, so he rushes over to the next closest and safest place he knows, Tom's house. There he prepares his escape from Earth, but just then he's spotted by Tom, who's frightened enough to fire a tranquilizer dart into Sonic's leg, causing Sonic to pass out while reading San Francisco on Tom's shirt, which results in the portal opening to the top of the city's Transamerica building as he falls to the floor, dropping a satchel of rings into the portal in the process before it closes. When Sonic comes to, he's left unable to really use his legs to escape due to the effects of the tranquilizer, which is pretty unfortunate since Robotnik soon arrives outside the home. So Sonic begs Tom to help him, claiming it's life or death, and Tom agrees, having Sonic hide in the attic as he tries to shoo Robotnik away. Robotnik, though, having just tracked an energy pulse with a similar signature to the one that caused the power outage to Tom's home, refuses to let up and just ends up forcing his way in. But there's nothing there for him to find, or at least it appears that way, until he notices the blue quill Tom had brought home with him earlier, leading Robotnik to aim his weaponized drones at Tom in hopes of forcing the creature's location out of him. But instead, Sonic just jumps out of hiding and distracts Robotnik long enough for Tom to knock him out with a huge right hand, before the two then head out to his truck and drive off. During the drive, Sonic explains how he'd been planning to leave Earth before all of what just happened with the use of his rings, and so, since Tom's the reason they're now lost, Sonic demands he take him to them, to which he agrees. As they enter the night during their trip, Tom pulls into a rest stop to call his deputy, Wade Whipple, hoping to reach him before a potential visit from Robotnik at the station. But it turns out Robotnik had already made his way there, snatching the phone from Wade and threatening Tom until the latter just hangs up. And things are then made even more annoying for Tom when he returns to his truck only to find Sonic no longer inside, as he's decided to put on a disguise and head into a nearby bar called the Piston Pit. Tom initially insists he and Sonic return to the car, not wanting them to possibly get caught, but upon learning how little Sonic's actually been able to experience on Earth, he decides to let them stay a while so he can cross some things off his bucket list. Their fun night is eventually interrupted though by a group of patrons who consider them hipsters and threaten them, prompting Sonic to try and smash a beer bottle over the big guy's head as he'd seen in action movies. But the glass fails to break and the big guy takes a swing at him, which ends up hitting Tom and sparks a huge full-scale brawl across the bar that Sonic eventually brings to an end with the use of his super speed to knock everyone to the floor. This giant brawl, though, ends up being discovered the next morning by Robotnik and his assistant Agent Stone, and enables them to pinpoint Tom and Sonic's exact location, onto which Robotnik unleashes various weaponized drones, and although they're able to thwart most of their attacks and get Robotnik off their trail, Sonic ends up getting the last of the drones stuck to his hand, which then explodes and incapacitates him. Tom, having nowhere else to go, rushes Sonic over to his wife Maddie, who'd been spending that day in San Francisco at her sister Rachel's house. Rachel's never been a fan of Tom though, and so believes this to be the perfect opportunity for Maddie to cut him out of her life, but Maddie instead decides to help him patch Sonic up and ties up her sister so she can't call the authorities. Once Sonic finally regains consciousness, Tom also gets Maddie to help them get to the top of the Transamerica building. Although before they go, Rachel's daughter Jojo, after noticing Sonic's shoes and socks have been completely worn down, decides to gift him a new pair of red shoes that he immediately loves. The three then head over to the top of the building and find Sonic's satchel of gold rings, so Sonic takes this time to thank Tom for saving and giving him the best 2 days of his life, before preparing to leave Earth once again. But yet again, he's interrupted by Robotnik and a new drone he calls the Egg Pod, which he'd created using Sonic's quill found earlier, which allows the machine to move at supersonic speeds, just like him. So to protect Tom and Maddie, Sonic sends them flying through a ring back to Green Hills as he's chased throughout San Francisco by Robotnik. Sonic suffers greatly to gain the edge in their battle though, as Robotnik eventually forces him to escape through a ring back to Green Hills as well following a huge blast by the Egg Pod, through which Robotnik's able to follow Sonic into the small town where he prepares to put an end to him once and for all, until he's suddenly shot by Deputy Wade, who alongside multiple other Green Hills residents, including the first person to become aware of Sonic's existence, Crazy Carl, comes to Sonic, Tom, and Maddie's aid, and offers enough of a distraction for Sonic to supercharge with energy and repeatedly unleash an attack against the Egg Pod until it's rendered useless, allowing him to then send in a Robotnik flying through a portal opened by Tom to the Mushroom Planet. Following their victory, Tom gives Sonic a much anticipated high five, and the two decide to stay in Green Hills, with Tom now having checked the Save a Life box off his bucket list and wanting to spend his life with the people he cares about, while Sonic no longer has any reason to run now that he has a real family in the form of Tom and Maddie, who he ends up moving in with. We then move forward 243 days and over to the Mushroom Planet, where it's revealed that Dr. Robotnik is still alive, although has been driven completely insane. Still, that hasn't stopped him from preparing a plan to escape, as using components from his destroyed Egg Pod and Sonic's quill, he's created an energy beacon in hopes that someone will come to investigate the signal. And eventually that night, he's met by a group of alien scavengers arriving through a ring portal, each of whom are quickly taken out by the Doctor before he attempts to make his long-awaited escape through their portal. But he's instead suddenly stopped in his tracks by a red echidna of the tribe that presumably killed Sonic's adoptive mother Longclaw named Knuckles, who questions where Robotnik found the quill, and he reveals that he'd obtained it from Sonic on Earth, to which he also offers to show Knuckles the way. Speaking of Earth, we're next dropped in Seattle, where we see Sonic in the midst of intercepting a group of bank robbers who'd hijacked an armored truck, and although he eventually manages to stop them, his pursuit also leaves an entire block destroyed. Sonic's not too worried about the damage he'd inadvertently caused though, and declares the city to have been saved by Blue Justice. The following day, back in Green Hills, Tom quickly becomes aware of Sonic's nighttime escapade via the newspaper, and so confronts Sonic about the destruction he'd caused, scolding him for being reckless and putting people in danger, which Sonic doesn't appreciate, feeling as though he did the right thing and that he can take care of himself. But Tom explains that being a hero is about more than that, as a hero also needs to take responsibility for other people. Moving ahead to the next day now, as Tom and Maddie prepare to head off for a trip to Hawaii to attend Maddie's sister Rachel's wedding with her fiance Randall. And for this trip, rather than having to take a plane, Sonic uses a ring portal to get them there, and also gives them a ring so they can travel back home. Immediately following their exit, Sonic takes full advantage of having the house to himself, partying all throughout along with their dog Ozzy, until his fun is suddenly interrupted by the return of Dr. Robotnik at his doorstep, now more powerful than ever with Knuckles by his side, who promptly unleashes an attack on Sonic, pummeling him repeatedly into the ground whilst demanding to know where he'd hidden the ultimate power, which leaves Sonic confused, claiming he's got the wrong guy. But still, Knuckles looks to land a fatal blow until he's fortunately stopped by a cop car crashing directly into him, driven by a yellow two-tailed fox named Tails, who we saw previously arriving in Green Hills hoping to warn Sonic of Knuckles' arrival, and who now scoops him up and helps him escape from the two villains. Once they're off their trail, Tails reveals who Knuckles is to Sonic, explaining that he's the last of the Echidnas and the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy, obsessed with finding the Master Emerald, an unstoppable weapon capable of turning thoughts into reality, created by the Echidnas using the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which he believes Sonic is the key to finding. With Knuckles and Robotnik hunting him down, Sonic decides to hide out with Tails at Wade Whipple's house, and there, he remembers seeing an emerald symbol on the map Longclaw gave him when he was a boy, so he opens it up to take a look, causing the map to suddenly begin glowing as a hologram of Longclaw emerges from it, in which she explains that protecting the emerald was her sacred duty that she must now pass on to Sonic, and reveals that she's hidden the emerald on Earth, which they must follow the map in order to find. So Sonic and Tails begin their quest to find the emerald, starting in Siberia, where the map says they'll find a compass that'll lead them to it. But they're quickly forced to take a break mid-trip due to a powerful snowstorm, so they wind down in a restaurant, and there, Sonic asks about all of Tails' gadgets, each of which Tails reveals he'd created himself, explaining that, growing up, he didn't have many friends and was bullied for his two tails, so he decided to spend his time creating devices like the one that helped him locate Sonic called the Miles Electric, a personalized multifunctional handheld computer, which first detected Sonic back when he let out that huge blast on the baseball field, allowing Tails to watch as Sonic took down Robotnik and saved the people of Green Hills, which he claims is what later motivated him to come to Earth and warn Sonic of Knuckles' arrival. Once the storms cleared up the following day, the two head back out on their quest and eventually find the location and gain possession of the compass, although before they can use it to find the emerald itself, they're attacked once again by Robotnik and Knuckles, with the former chasing after them with his weaponized drones, before Knuckles manages to knock Sonic out of the air and takes this opportunity to blame Sonic for him having lost everything, revealing that when he was young, his tribe was on the verge of its greatest victory, as the last of the Owl Warriors had been located. But although he wanted to take part in the achievement, his father stopped him from joining the fight, claiming his moment to honor their tribe would come, but not at this moment. And sadly, that was the last time he'd see his father. Sonic sympathizes with Knuckles and claims they both lost everything that day, causing Knuckles to let his guard down and allowing Tails to shoot him with electric wire ropes, an attack that Knuckles perceives as a betrayal of his trust by Sonic, but Sonic insists he wasn't trying to trick him. Still, Knuckles prepares to attack, so Sonic attempts to throw the compass to Tails so he can escape with it, but it's instead intercepted by Robotnik, who then shoots a rocket at Tails that sends him crashing to the ground and knocks him unconscious. Robotnik and Knuckles then escape as Sonic attempts to resuscitate Tails, but that's interrupted when an avalanche occurs, forcing Sonic to scoop Tails up, and with no other way to escape, call Tom in the middle of Rachel and Randall's wedding ceremony so that he can open a portal using the ring he'd given him earlier and help them avoid being engulfed. Sonic then attempts to explain all of what's happened, but he's suddenly interrupted when he's shot and knocked out by an electric net, fired by Commander Walters of the United States Armed Forces in the Pentagon, who we'd met previously back when he'd convinced the US government to hire Dr. Robotnik, and who now reveals that following the events in San Francisco, a global task force was created to protect the planet from alien threats called the Guardian Units of Nations, aka GUN. And it's also revealed that everyone involved in Rachel's wedding, including Randall, is an undercover agent of the US military, as the ceremony had been staged in an attempt to capture Sonic, Having succeeded in their mission, the agents load him and Tails into cages and arrest Tom for aiding and abetting an uncontrolled extraterrestrial. But the agents don't realize that they'd left behind Tails' backpack full of gadgets, which is then found by JoJo and given to her mother and Maddie, enabling the latter to take the agents down en route to freeing the trio, while Rachel takes some of the gadgets as well as a golf cart to hunt down Randall. After trying to run him over though, he's able to stop any further attack by apologizing for deceiving her, and revealing that he truly has fallen in love with her, so the two make amends and share a kiss. Back to Sonic now, who with Tails still knocked unconscious, decides to go off on his own to intercept Robotnik and Knuckles before they can claim the Master Emerald, and upon encountering them once again, he engages in yet another brawl with Knuckles, which inadvertently gives Robotnik the perfect opportunity to betray his partner and claim the power of the Emerald for himself, before then using its power to teleport back to Green Hills as the labyrinth where the Emerald had been kept begins collapsing and flooding with water, leaving Knuckles trapped beneath a column and nearly drowning to death. But he's fortunately saved by Sonic, who once having freed Knuckles, then nearly also drowns as well due to him not being able to swim. But Knuckles immediately returns the favor and brings him back up to the surface with him. When Sonic regains consciousness, Knuckles asks how, after losing everything and failing over and over again, does he remain hopeful and free. And Sonic says it's thanks to him having found a new family and new friends, and he urges Knuckles to try and do the same. The two are then joined and picked up by Tails, who flies them over to Green Hills and brings them before Robotnik's giant Eggman robot, created using the Emerald. And the three decide to work together to take him down. Despite their best efforts though, they struggle greatly to overpower Robotnik and his creation, with Sonic being sent crashing to the ground by a snot rocket blast. But eventually, Tails and Knuckles manage to break into the giant robot, and after a distraction by Tails that sees him creating multiple holograms of himself, Knuckles is able to punch the Emerald out of Eggman, which in turn results in the giant robot crashing to the ground, along with the Emerald. A heavily injured Sonic then crawls his way over to the Emerald, but although gaining possession of it, he's unable to activate its power for himself, as it suddenly shatters, leaving the 7 Chaos Emeralds separated once again. So with all hope seemingly lost, Sonic, Tom, and Maddie share an embrace as Robotnik, with his giant robot back up and running, goes to finish them with a huge stomp. But just then, the 7 Chaos Emeralds levitate and merge with Sonic, giving him a new golden color and allowing him to block the blow. And with his newfound power, he then swiftly decapitates and destroys the robot, sending in Robotnik once again crashing to the ground. Following the victory, Sonic meets back up with Tom, Maddie, Tails, and Knuckles, and decides to relinquish his new power and return to his original form, feeling that he still has some growing up to do, and for now, just wants to continue being a kid. So Knuckles reforms the Master Emerald, which Tails and Sonic suggest they use to start a new order of heroes to protect the galaxy from those who would use the Emerald for evil, to which Knuckles agrees, with the three sharing a power bump and promising to keep the universe safe and to watch out for each other. We then move ahead to the following day as the three heroes, Tom and Maddie, take part in a baseball game, which quickly comes to an end when Knuckles punches the ball completely out of the field, and so the movie ends with him heading off for some celebratory ice cream. Shifting back to Commander Walters for a moment, who's now no longer seeking to capture Sonic or his friends, as he and other gun agents search amongst the ruins of the giant Eggman robot, and are unable to find any sign of Dr. Robotnik, although Walters isn't worried about that, believing no one could have survived that fall. But that may not be the case, as we see Agent Stone mysteriously disguised as a gun soldier. Walters is then informed by his agent that when removing Robotnik from their databases, they'd found a file buried deep in their system dating back over 50 years, containing coordinates to a secret research facility that Walters recognizes as Project Shadow, and were then taken to this remote facility as a black and red hedgehog awakens. After some time, we meet back up yet again with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, now friends and roommates, all living together in the Wachowskis' attic. Knuckles, though, is still struggling to adapt to this new way of life, since all he knows is the life of a warrior, resulting in him doing things he probably shouldn't, such as repeatedly attacking the construction workers fixing up the Wachowskis' home. And eventually, after a fourth incident, Maddie is forced to ground him. Frustrated and unsure of himself after having completed his mission of recovering the Master Emerald, Knuckles turns to his Echidna elders for a sign of what he should do. And he's promptly met by the spirit of Chief Pachacamac, who informs him that his quest is not yet complete, as with him being the last of the Echidnas, it is his duty to continue on the legacy of their people. So Pachacamac tells him he must train an apprentice in the ways of the Echidnas, with this apprentice being none other than Wade Whipple, who the chief claims is special and seeks to compete in a tournament of champions, for which he'll need to be trained as a warrior, so Knuckles agrees to see out this mission. Upon arriving at Wade's home, Knuckles learns of this tournament of champions he was hoping to compete in. Revealed to be a bowling tournament that he'd actually just lost his spot in to an 8-year-old girl named Susie, after he was kicked off his team by who he thought was his best friend, Jack Sinclair. Although Knuckles considers bowling alleys a playground for adult idiots rather than a place of battle, he still continues forward with his mission and begins training Wade. That is until their training is suddenly interrupted by a portal opening before them, out from which gun agents Willoughby and Mason emerge. The two agents aren't here per Gun's order though, but rather for their own profit, as they previously made a deal with an infamous arms dealer known as the Buyer to capture Knuckles in exchange for a large sum of money. And for the job, the Buyer has given them special weapons built using some of Knuckles' power, allowing them to hold their own against him, but ultimately he manages to overpower them. Although they're then able to outsmart him, with Willoughby suddenly firing a weapon to open a portal beneath Knuckles that sends him straight into and traps him within a box. They then take him back to a hotel and await the Buyer's arrival. But fortunately for Knuckles, they'd unknowingly left one of their weapons behind at the bowling alley to be found by Wade. So he pulls up to the hotel to help him, which goes very poorly at first, as he inadvertently blows up his own cop car with the explosives he bought, but ultimately, he's able to create another explosion with the weapon he'd found and free Knuckles before escaping. However, shortly following their exit, they learn over the radio that a $100,000 bounty has been put out for Wade's arrest after his car was found outside of the damaged building. So to lay low, the two then head off to Wade's mother Wendy's house, where we also meet Wade's sister Wanda, who's an FBI agent. It doesn't take long for Wade to be tracked down though, as the following morning, he's suddenly yanked off his porch and captured by his former best friend and bowling teammate, Jack Sinclair, who, as he'd briefly mentioned earlier, is also a bounty hunter. However, Jack's desire to collect the bounty is overtaken by his desire for battle, as Wade decides to challenge him to a duel, with the winner getting the final spot on Jack's bowling team, and Jack agrees. Impressively, Wade actually manages to come out on top of the duel after slicing off Jack's long hair with a sword, forcing Jack to give up his spot in the Tournament of Champions and run off. So Wade, his family, and Knuckles head off to Reno to participate in the tournament. And shortly after arriving at the National Bowling Stadium, Wade encounters his estranged father, Pistol Pete Whipple, a 27-time championship bowler who, as we learned earlier, had abandoned his wife and children when Wade was young to enjoy the life of a celebrity, and is the main reason why Wade wanted to enter the Tournament of Champions, believing it could help him regain his father's love. So ahead of the tournament, Wade decides to approach his father, and to his surprise, Pete claims he's happy to see him, and proposes the two take some time to catch up after the games. Making the night even better for Wade, he and his teammate Susie manage to qualify for the finals, in which they'll be taking on his father Pete the following night. But soon enough, everything comes crashing down rather quickly, as when Wade arrives at his father's suite to hang out later, he's not only met by his father, but also agents Willoughby and Mason, who are revealed to have captured his mother and sister as well, and threaten to harm them if he doesn't bring them Knuckles. So he tracks Knuckles down and sends him up to his father's suite without raising suspicion, as Willoughby and Mason listen over the phone. But unbeknownst to them, Wade had previously had his AirPods on when he first arrived to the suite himself, so Knuckles is fully aware of their plan and is able to get the jump on them. On the ropes, Agent Willoughby once again fires a pair of gold rings at Knuckles, but he's able to intercept them, turning the portals onto the agents, which they're promptly sucked into. So with Willoughby and Mason defeated, Knuckles turns Wade's focus back onto the Tournament of Champions, and Wade, now even more motivated than ever, manages to impressively go bowl for bowl with his father, and shockingly comes out victorious. However, in the midst of their contest, Knuckles had overheard destruction outside, revealed to be the doing of the Buyer, who's come in a robot suit built using Knuckles' power to capture him himself. And his tech actually allows him to overpower the Echidna, so Wade's forced to come to Knuckles' aid, and with his friend's help, Knuckles is able to come out on top as well. And that was everything you'll need to know before watching Sonic the Hedgehog 3. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And also, let us know in the comments below which Sonic project is your all-time favorite. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.